Beyond hands where nothing is hidden, we talking so get in.
Listen.
Beyond hands where nothing is hidden, we talking so get in.
Listen.
Mary Bly.
Show.
Mary Bly.
Show.
Beyond hands where nothing is hidden, we talking so get in.
Listen.
Beyond hands where nothing is hidden, we talking so get in.
Listen.
Mary Bly.
Show.
Mary Bly.
Show.
Welcome.
Welcome to the Unhinged, a Mary Bly show. I'm going to do story time on my dad. And the reason why I'm doing this now, it's because on July 29th, it will mark his anniversary that he was taken from us. So first I'm going to start off with a story that I was told after my father passed away that I didn't know anything about. And it made me really smile because I can imagine my dad doing this. But the story that I was told after he died was that when the time came for me to come home from the hospital, he went home and he cleaned the whole apartment, and he had bought balloons and cake. I don't know why the cake, okay, because I was like a newborn coming home. So it's not like I was going to partake in the cake, right? But he did come home and he cleaned and he put balloons out, and he was so happy, according to the story that I was told, right? And I can just imagine him doing stuff like that. If you knew my dad, then you would know my dad was very, very silly. He was always like the fun one. And anyways, that's what I wanted to open up with. But I don't remember much of my childhood. There's a lot of pieces missing from my childhood, and that's because of the trauma that I suffered. And I'm not going to elaborate too much on that stuff because that is going to be part of my story that I will share. I do have someone who's coming on as a guest host, and she is going to do the interview for me on that. So I won't get too much into it, but I do remember certain things of my childhood that pertain to my father. And my father, we used to live in Lubbock with my family. So shout out to all my family over there in Lubbock. We used to live in Lubbock, and I remember that every weekend we used to go to a park. And I believe it's called McKinsley Park. So somebody in Lubbock, please correct me if that park is still there, if that's the name of the park. But we used to go there all the time. And I remember he used to take me to that park. And I used to love because we would sit on, as a little girl, you think the hills are so big, and they're really not, right? They're small. As you get older, you realize, oh, that wasn't even a big hill. But I remember he would like for us to sit up at the top of the hill, and he would tell me to lay down. Thank you. He would tell me to lay down, right? And he would roll me, and I would go rolling down this hill. And it was like the best effing times ever for me. And I used to like that. And realized, though, that I was allergic to the grass, and I would have all these red bumps and everything all over me. And I remember my mom would be like so mad at him because of that. But it was our thing, and that's what we loved to do. I was more of a spoiled child when it came to that. My dad was the very lenient one. He let me get away with a lot of stuff, and a lot of candies and stuff like that I remember. But yeah, if you knew my dad, you knew that my dad would literally give his shirt off his back to you, you know. He never wanted to see anybody like go through some stuff like that. My dad held multiple jobs, but the last that he was known for was being maintenance for Houston Independent School District. So, you know, he really loved that. We talked quite a bit about it. And I remember when he first got the job, he was excited and he stayed doing it for, you know, for some time, for several years. He loved that the teachers, the staff, and the students would always say, you know, always call him out like, hey, Mr. Mendoza, you know, how are you? And they would give him like these cards and the kids would do things for him. So he was always excited about that. I love that. But going back to some of the other things, my dad wasn't around much. I believe my mom had left my dad. My dad was, he was a drinker, you know, he was an alcoholic, and I never saw him be abusive. So I don't know, you know, if that happened. I never saw that. But my mom did leave him. So we left him there in Lubbock and we came to Houston. And I didn't see my dad for a long time. And that was, hold on. Sorry, guys. That was hard because I missed my dad. I needed my dad. And I resented my mother for that, you know, because things happened to me under her watch, you know. And so I had a lot of resentment because of that. But so I don't want to get into that because that's part of my story that I do want to tell later on. But I missed my dad, you know, and I remember that as a little girl. My mom worked two jobs, you know, so my sister and I were by ourselves a lot of times. You know, I grew up in the 70s, so I'm a real Gen Xer here. And I used to look out the window and I used to think, um, every time I saw an airplane at night, I would look out the window and I would look in the sky and I would see the airplane and I would be like, my dad's on that plane, you know, he's going to come get me, you know. So I always waited and waited. And then I would time it and I would be like, okay, you know, I'm like 7 years old thinking, all right, in a couple of hours, he's going to come knocking on the door and he's going to come get me and I'm going to leave with my dad, you know. Um, but that never fucking happened, you know. Uh, Eventually I got tired of waiting for the airplanes to come and no knock at the door. And it wasn't until probably I was 13-ish when my dad came back into my life and I was like really happy. But by then, so much of the trauma that I had suffered when he wasn't there happened, right? And by now I was starting to act out and do stupid shit, you know? Um, and he came and I was 13 and that's kind of at the point in my life where I was just going to leave and take off. And so I left. So again, my dad, you know, I wasn't there with my dad, during those times. And a lot of other stuff happened, but you know, bottom line is I ended up in prison and, you know, no matter what, like my dad never ever, he never made me feel like I was worthless or I was nothing. You know, my dad never made me feel that way. In fact, he was the only one of my family to go and visit me in prison. Um, you know, that's just how he was. Didn't matter, no matter what. He always thought I was his perfect little daughter, you know. He never showed disappointment. He never did any of that. But anyways, I'm gonna skip through a lot of stuff because again, a lot of it will tie in into the story that I tell about my life. when that time comes, and that time will be soon. So I don't want to, talk too much about all that. But going back to July 4th, 2012, um, I believe that was a Wednesday, maybe. And I was there. I was living in Montgomery at the time. And I was with a friend from Montgomery, and her and her husband had a boat, and we went out to the lake and we were watching fireworks. Okay. Um, and I kept thinking, man, I want to call my dad, and I wish my dad could have came over here, but uh, I couldn't. I just didn't communicate with him at the time, about it. So that was July 4th, and that was on a Wednesday. I didn't know anything about what was going on at that time, but you know, what happened was my dad was walking home from, I guess, being at a bar, drinking or whatever, and his wife at the time had went, from what I understand, and took his bike away. So my dad did drive, but my dad apparently during one of those times when we were all separated, was in a bad wreck, and he didn't drive anymore after that. Um, so he rode a 10 speed. So, he would ride a 10 speed from, like, if you're from H Town, then from like Stella Link all the way to like Fry Road in Katy, how far that is. My dad would get on this 10 speed and drive, ride his bike that far to come and see me. That's just how he was. And he was in good shape, because he did a lot of that. And we always knew that, you know, one day that he was going to have a bad accident or he was going to get run over, because that was his means of transportation everywhere he went. Um, but apparently the wife went and he didn't want to go home because he was still celebrating 4th of July. So she took his bike. And so it was a little bit before 10 o'clock p.m. when he was walking down the road of Anderson Road, and can't think of the other road, when his accident happened. So he was walking down the road and he got hit by a car. Um, there's a lot of stuff and I'll tell you all about the case. There's a lot of stuff that went on. There was a witness. There was a lady, but she was a nursing student at the time, and she was with her daughter. Her daughter was probably, I think, 7 years old at the time. And she was coming from southwest side of Houston, like Bissonnette, and hopped on the Beltway and was going toward, where my dad lived. And she said there was a gold Honda Accord with two people for sure, and it looked like a third one in the vehicle. And they were driving, so she drove from that way all the way to where everything happened. So it was kind of a distance, maybe about a 20-minute distance. I think I can't even remember time it, but she was riding, and she says that the car was weaving in and out of traffic, like they had been drinking. And it's a possibility. It was the 4th of July, so I'm sure people were, um, partaking in alcohol and drinking and driving, and like we do stupid shit, right? So they were traveling down Beltway, down that way. Kiambi happened to live that way. And after conversating with her, after everything happened, she said, I never go that way because it's always dark down that street. There's never any lights. It's never well lit. She said, but she was tired. Her daughter was tired. Her daughter was getting cranky, and she decided to go that way. So she witnessed everything that happened. And can you imagine the little girl? that saw that happen, Tiami said that her daughter like had nightmares for a long time because of that. Um, but anyways, she did tell me, she says, look, I could have followed the car and got the license plate, but I chose to stay and help your father. She was a nursing student at the time. She's a nurse now, but she was a nursing student at the time. And I had to tell her, I said, like she don't know, right? She don't know what she did for me. She don't know. I had to tell her, I said, Tiabi, what you did was you gave me a precious gift. You gave me more time with my dad, right? Because even though he was he was in a coma from the moment they brought him in to the till the time he passed, right? Uh, she still was able. She still gave me that gift to allow me more time to be able to say my piece. But my dad was in the hospital from July 4th until he passed on July the 29th. So July 29th will mark his anniversary, which is why I wanted to share his story. Um, you know, I don't know what happened outside of the hospital walls. I don't know. I don't know who did what. I don't know what. I know life went on, but I don't know because I was there every day from morning until night. There were times when I don't even remember that I ate. You know, nurses and doctors were kicking me out of the hospital, go home, go eat, go sleep. And I wouldn't do that because I was afraid that if I left and he woke up, I'm not going to be there. Or if he just couldn't hang on anymore, I'm not going to be there. And that he was going to transition or wake up on his own. So I stayed in the hospital. And the one time that I went home and fell asleep was when I, got the news. But it was from July 4th through the July 29th. What is that? 26 days, 25 days. I was in the hospital. I didn't care about nothing outside the hospital walls. I didn't care who else lived, who died. That's the reality of it. I didn't give a shit about any of it. Okay. All I cared about, it was my dad. So I would sing to him. I would read him books, thinking that he's going to wake up. Um, Meanwhile, the investigation goes a little something like this. There were some witnesses or whatever that the car was at the hospital. They tried to pull footage from the parking lot. The footage was bad. When everything was said and done, the witness's daughter said there was, and I can't really remember, but it was either an O or a Q in the plate. My cousin in Lubbock at the time ran some, I don't know, he got the report and was able to get some information and says, hey, I found the owners to the car. They live literally down the street from where my dad lived. The uncle, it was registered to the uncle, but a niece drove the car. So I'm guessing that he got the car for the niece, right? And the niece happened to live on the southwest side, Bissonnet area, where she hopped on the Beltway to travel to her uncle. So I'm guessing that they were traveling for the festivities of the 4th of July. It just so happened that my father lived in the same neighborhood. Anyways, the plate number that my cousin came back with had a plate number, and I did have the plate number, and then the plate number was the letter O. So the little girl thought it was a Q, but it was actually an O. Now, the uncle that owned this vehicle owned a body shop in the area where my father and him, they all lived at. So this happened on the weekday. The news broke out on Saturday, I believe. I had no idea that it was a gold Honda Accord. The news somehow put that out there, put that information out there. And what I'm speculating happened was when they found out about that, or maybe they didn't know they hit anybody. Maybe, maybe they didn't know. I don't know. But what I think happened, and this is my version of it, what I believe is that the girl lived over here. They traveled that way where my dad lives because her uncle lived that way too, because according to the registration, that's the address, right? He owned a car shop. They hit my dad. Maybe they knew, maybe they didn't know. Maybe they were drunk, maybe they were high. I don't know. They see the damage. They see that there's a missing mirror on the car. The police have that. Okay. But the uncle owns a car shop. So they got that car fixed. Now, next week comes around and I have information of where this vehicle, where the vehicle is at and who's driving the vehicle. The investigator and I, we go. This vehicle no longer matches that description that they're looking for because the mirror is now fixed. Okay. So circumstantial evidence. They don't want to get a warrant to pick up the vehicle to test anything because it no longer matches the description. And the description was a gold Honda Accord with the missing mirror. Okay. So there's just no way that they would get a warrant for that. She couldn't call anybody to come pick it up because it no longer matched. So now we're dealing with that, right? I had so much anger that I vowed to take out all these fucking people. Like for real. I had so much anger that I said to myself, I am going to make some phone calls and I'm going to handle it the way that I know how I can handle it. And the old me was coming back, and then I had the pressure of specific people in my ear constantly telling me, you need to find them, you need to find them, and you need to make them pay, and you need to make them pay. And that's literally from the moment from when this happened, from when he passed away, even at the funeral home, I was being told this, and it was too much. Like I couldn't even deal, right? I knew in my head, I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew how I was going to do it. But I spent so much time in depression because of that every day for, let's see, let me think when that happened. Every day until, I want to say August, September, October, till it was 8 months. Every day I thought about how can I die today? For real. Because it's really how I felt. How can I die? Because I just don't want to live. Because my dad was my everything. I didn't have that time with him like I wanted, Oh, because of the stupid shit that I did, right? I missed out on a lot. So I just wanted to be with my dad. I wanted to be with him. But I was too chicken to pull a trigger or to take pills or to, kill myself, right? I was too chicken. I didn't have the courage to do that. So every day I just thought about praying about, can I get into a wreck today? Like, who's going to hit me? Who's going to wreck me and, make me be in the hospital and make me die? Like, who, I mentally, I was fucked up like that because I was so sad and depressed about my dad. I really was. He could have saved me and I could have saved him, right? So that's really what I had thought about for like the 8 months. Oh, and my dad wasn't about material things, so I don't really give a shit about the material things. But When I tell you how I was done dirty, my family, I was done fucking dirty. Um, if I'm gonna tell stuff, I'm just gonna tell the truth about it, right? Because this is my truth, right? But yeah, at the funeral, when we were making arrangements for the funeral, certain people, well, his wife, my sister, they wanted this and they wanted that. And I'm thinking, who the fuck's paying for this stuff, right? Because like nobody had money. Like who's paying for it? So, I was trying to make everybody happy, and give what they wanted. And in the end, I ended up paying for some of that stuff out of cost. But, I was married at the time and my ex-mother-in-law was there and she was noticing all kinds of stuff, but she was not happy with it. She just stayed quiet and she asked, hey, why don't we go home, get some rest, and tomorrow I'm going to take you to go get your hair done, go get you an outfit for the funeral, stuff like that. And I'm like, no, no, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. But it was because, I don't have a good relationship with my sister at all, period. None of us do. And that will tie into my story when I get ready to tell my story, okay? But uh the wife, my dad's wife, at the time, I had no idea he was married up till a few months prior, but she invited my sister to go and stay at the house, and gather some of my dad's things that she could have whatever, take whatever. Uh, so I didn't get any of that. What I got was a T-shirt from him, and I would have preferred I preferred the T-shirt anyways because it's a T-shirt and some jackets that I still have to this day that I hold on to. Um, there was some like a little cassette of Sade. I love Sade, so I took that cassette. There's this little. My dad collected junk. Okay, if you knew my dad, you would be like, okay, if he saw something at the garage sale, he thought he liked it, he was gonna take it. Okay, so he didn't have fancy stuff. My dad wasn't about money and didn't have fancy stuff like that, but he did have this damn airplane. He did have this damn airplane uh that he had, and I remember thinking I want that plane, and I snatched that plane because that plane reminded me of when I used to look out the window, and every time I saw a plane, I would think my dad's coming and he's gonna come get me. So I kept that, right? And that to me like means more to me more than anything than fucking jewelry, money. It means a lot more than that. Anyways, but yeah, that stuff means more to me more than anything. Like I'm not about the money. I never was about the money. Yeah, it's nice to have money so you can have nice things, go out and do shit. But my dad wasn't like that, and that's not how I am either. Um, but I have that plane, and I wish I would have brought it out so I could show you guys. But I do have that plane put up. Um, but when I saw it, I thought to myself, that's it. That's what I'm keeping. That's what I'm going to treasure the most is that damn plane because it just again it reminds me of when I was younger, thinking about the planes in the sky at night, looking up. Like my dad's on that plane. I could almost envision him on that plane to come. He's coming to get me. But nothing ever happened with the case about those people. You know, the investigator did go talk to them and she couldn't make them come in. They came in a couple weeks later and they told their story, and the detectives told me, she said, I've been doing this over 20 years and my gut tells me they're guilty, but we can't do anything about it unless they confess. Their stories were rehearsed to the T, word for word. And she just she says there's nothing, I'm sorry, there's nothing that I can do, that we could do, that convince them. They have to be willing to come in and admit to what they did. Now, again, they were young. They were probably drinking. They were probably high. They probably didn't even know that's what they did. Uh, Not making excuses for them. I'm just saying I don't know what was going through their minds that, you know, when you're, I know for a fact, like when you're on drugs or intoxicated, there's some things that I don't remember that I did. It isn't brought up until like later on when they said, "Hey, do you remember you did this?" No, not really. But I was also drunk or high. So, but I wanted to share that little piece. I'm getting ready to tell my story. I just want to give you pieces of it. But I did want to share that with my dad and what happened to my dad. Uh, I am in a better place now. So, I don't think about that stuff I did back then, but I am in a better place. Um, Everything happens for a reason. There's a timing for everything. I truly believe that. If you ask me, do I forgive those people that took my dad away? I forgive them. I do. Because I can't, I can't continue to hold that because that shit will fucking kill you. That will eat away at your soul, right? So, in order to have that peace and be able to let go and live life the way that I've been living, I had to be able to let a lot of that stuff go. Uh, the thing with my father, I do forgive. I forgive, and if a day came that they actually, you know, that somebody confessed, or somebody comes knocking on the door to say, "Hey, this is, we've solved this case." I'm gonna be happy. I'm gonna be like, "Yes, finally." I just want to know what happened. What happened. Uh, when I stand in court, ask the judge to show them leniency. Probably it just depends. I would really like to have a conversation with them and, see where they're at in life today, um, see what they're accomplishing, and go from there. As far as having hatred towards them, I don't have that hatred towards them anymore. I did, like really bad, like really bad to the point where I wanted to old school some stuff, but I don't hate them. I just want to know what happened. I want to know where they at in life today. That's important to me to know where they're at in life today. Um, because who knows? Maybe they did know, and one of them is living with the guilt. Maybe they're not even alive anymore. I don't know. But my dad would not be, he wouldn't want that for me. He wouldn't want me to self sabotage or have hate towards that. He would say, know what he would say? Ay, mija, they didn't know. It was an accident. They're innocent. That's what my dad would say. It would say, it's okay, it's okay. Because my dad was like that. And there's times that I hated that he was like that because people would take advantage of my dad. Um, but he didn't have hate in his heart. And he wouldn't want me to have hate in my heart. So if I'm anything like my dad, that, I had to forgive, right? It took me a minute. And so I'm not going to say that was easy because it wasn't easy. And that was very difficult. So, but bottom line is I do forgive. And I just pray that they are, that they're in a better place. That these people who did this are in a better place, that they're making something, meaningful in their life. That they're doing something positive in their community. That they're not living how they lived back then, like, drinking or doing drugs. I really pray that they have changed and that their life does mean something, because my dad's not here, but they possibly are, right? But my dad was like fucking crazy. He couldn't even get my kids' names right. And when Christmas time came around, he couldn't even get the presents right for their age. That's just nobody cared. That was Grandpa Joe. That was Papa Joe. Everybody loved him. Uh, I could tell you more stories about my dad. Like, for example, when uh, Pops and I, my ex-husband, may he rest in peace too. But when we were together, we had all the kids. Like my dad did, like I said, my dad didn't drive. He would ride a bike, right? And there were times when he needed to go to the grocery store and he would call me and say, "Hey," and I would say, "Okay, I'll go." And he would always give me gas money, even if I didn't need it. But he would just, "No, no, no, take it, take it." So he bought a lot of single people food, like frozen stuff that you can pop in the microwave, whatever, right? And I would go and I would take a. He always lied. He always lied. He would always say, "Oh no, I bought too much. Oh look, just take this with you. Take this home. Look, give this to the kids. Give this to the kids." So he'd always send me with a bag of groceries home and money, even when I didn't need it. But that's the way my dad was. That's the way he was. And for the longest time, there was these lights that Pops had bought. There were Siamese cats, and they had a light bulb in there, so you would plug them in and turn them on. And he would always forever try to steal those every time he came to the house. He was always, "Oh, I want that. Oh, I'm taking that." Oh, for the longest time, and Pops, I think, ended up giving him those stupid cats because my dad liked those cats. It wasn't about money. He didn't care about you buying him presents that came from jewelry stores or fancy clothes. Like, he didn't know none of that stuff. My dad was a very humble person. He would be glad to, if he saw these headphones and he liked them and you gave it to him, he'd be happy as F, for real. The speakers that I have here, if he liked them, says, "Oh, I can hear my Selena with that," because he was a huge Selena fan. He would be happy with the speakers. And he would think that's his birthday. That's his birthday gift or that's his Christmas gift. But I'm willing to answer any questions if you guys have any questions at this point. So I'll turn it over to you guys. If you got questions, go ahead and ask in the chat and I will be glad to answer those questions. There's a lot more to say, but I don't want to give everything away because, but there's a lot more that I will share with you guys when it comes to my whole story. All right. Um, but it's the anniversary coming up on July 29th, which is why I wanted to do a little piece on him. Um, the investigation is still open. So the investigation is still open. It is a manslaughter charge, is what it is at this point. But they can't do anything anymore until somebody comes forward. So the year that this happened was July 4th, 2012. Yeah, July 12th, 2012. I was going to say this year. Yeah. So investigation, as far as I know, is to. Okay, let me just say something. Let me back up a little bit on this. So Crime Stoppers, like, I have such an issue with this because back then, right, when this happened, I have all the paperwork. I have the investigation. I have the police report. I have the everything of where he was found, like everything, right? Um, I don't know how hard it is, and maybe somebody who works with Crime Stoppers can tell me and help me out, because every effing year, okay, every effing year, for the longest time, I gave up, but for the longest time, I would call them. It's the year again. Can you get a flyer? Can you get? They could never find any information on this. My dad just like, if it just didn't happen. And I was like, well, here's the case number, here's the all the reports, and I could never get a flyer from Crime Stoppers. Never. Now, Channel 2, shout out to Channel 2, and shout out to Telemundo, because and to my friends at Telemundo who actually hooked it up for me. But they did do a piece on my dad, and Channel 2 went to the hospital and they did the piece, and then Channel 48 or 45 Telemundo, they went out there. They actually went to the home and they did a whole nice piece about it. And you know, they came to my home in Montgomery, and they did everything, and they showed pictures, and they did a really nice piece on that information about my dad, and that they were looking for the gold Honda Accord in that area off of Anderson. Um, but I could never get the damn flyer from Crime Stoppers. Can somebody please tell me, why couldn't I get it? Like, what's the process? What is the issue? I've had the case numbers. The case numbers never changed. I mean, now this is an older case, but even when it was brand new and it happened within those months, I mean, I had family members that were not immediate family members, but that were still trying to help and try to push this through. And I had the ex sister-in-law who called the news, who called Crime Stoppers, and we could never get that damn flyer for the Crime Stoppers reward. Why? Somebody please tell me why, because I really want to know. So now that I think about it, that's starting to irritate me, because I couldn't get the flyer for whatever reason. And I think that if we had a flyer and we could go post those up at that time, and people are more willing to come forward if there's a reward in it, and they know that they can do this anonymously. But I couldn't get that damn thing. So I have an issue with Crime Stoppers, bro. Like, for real. Like, I feel like they failed me. Even though I had my information, investigator's name, officer's name, the officer at the scene, the witness name, the police report, the incident report, like everything. But whatever. I couldn't, I don't know. That's a whole different thing with Crime Stoppers, but I couldn't get that damn flyer. And every year I tried for the first 4 or 5 years, I tried to get the flyer for the anniversary, but it never would happen. So, but anyways, if you guys have any more questions, I'd be willing to answer those questions. Just what's up with the flyer? That's all I want to know, for real. But like I was saying, there'll be a continuation more, but it's going to be based more on my whole life, my journey, and the trauma that I had as a child and how I overcame all that. What my plans are for the future. But I'm not that old. Should it be in flyer public records? Well, crime. See, I think Crime Stoppers. Let me see. I don't know. I think that. I mean, it's all public record. Yeah, you can find. I think you can find the reports and stuff. Like, look it up for my dad and stuff if you have his name and date of birth. But I don't know why we had to contact. The question is, should the flyer be public records? I don't know how that works. If somebody in Crime Stoppers can tell me how that works, that would be really, really great. Um, I don't know. I just know that I called. My ex sister-in-law would call Crime Stoppers. They would say, okay, they got all the information, but we never could get the flyer. Like, there was always something, and every time I called, it was a different person, and nobody knew about anything from previous. So it was always an issue. I don't know. And just, I feel like at this point, I just want Crime Stoppers to do a flyer for back in the day so that I can have. But I don't know that that's gonna work or happen, but whatever. But yes, any more questions? I'll be glad to answer. Thank y'all so much, everybody, for who joined. I appreciate y'all. The full video of this interview will be out for the podcast. Okay, so the question is, when is the full video coming out for the podcast? This video will be coming out on Saturday. So I'll release it on Saturday, and you can catch it on iHeartRadio. You can catch it on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, the X. It's all about it's called the Unhinged and Mary Bly Show. So the next question is, what about your life story podcast? Good question. That is going to be recorded this weekend. And I think that I am going to wait 2 weeks before I release that. So yeah, but possibly 2 weeks from now, that's my story, my whole life story will be released on the podcast. So again, you guys can find me on iHeartRadio, Rumble, Spotify, YouTube, The Unhinged, a Mary Bly Show. I did a little different today. I did a little storytelling. Normally I do have like somebody who would have been a guest host to come in and ask me questions, but I didn't feel like I wanted to answer questions. I just wanted to tell you bits and pieces of what I wanted to share about my father. Because again, I do have my whole thing coming out. So is the podcast interview based on a book in the making? Melanie, these are some great questions. So the podcast interview, okay, is the podcast interview based on a book in the making? Yes, it is. Title is in work in progress. But yes, I've had the pleasure of interviewing somebody on my podcast twice, and I've have a really good connection with this person. She has had trauma in her life as well. She's also had some paranormal experiences, but her story is also incredible. So yeah, you guys just got to stay tuned for that. Yeah, thank you so much. All right. Any more questions? I'm open to more questions, guys. Melani's just taking over on the questioning. So if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to ask me anything y'all want to ask me. Pretty soon I'll be an open book. My dad's name. So my dad's name is Joe. Yeah. So I beat somebody to the question. The question is, what's your dad's name? So Joe. Yeah, I am an open book. So ask away. I don't hide anything. Now, rather I want to tell you certain aspects of my life, that's something completely different. Because I always feel that there's a place and a time for everything. So, but for the most part, I will be honest and ask. My kids know my stuff. So, because I knew one day, but we will, okay. So the question is, but we will see it all on the podcast. Yes, you will. So, but, that's a story that I want to share with you about my dad. And I miss my dad every day. But yes, I forgive the people who did this and took my father away. So hi, Olivia's mom. I'm so glad you guys can finally join. I just shared the story of my dad and how my dad was taken away from me in 2012. But you guys missed some of the good questions. Was the investigation still open? Yes, the investigation is still open. Have I forgiven the people? Absolutely, I have forgiven. I have forgiven because I don't want to have that nastiness in my soul, just that just buries me. You know what I'm saying? My dad was a very loving person. He was a very forgiving person, and he was a happy person. And that's how he would want me to be. And so I'm going to continue to live my life that way. So yeah, I forgive for sure. I forgive, you know. Um, But like I said, I didn't want to just give everything away about my dad because I do have my story coming out, and can't wait. We do have some stuff that we're working to make that happen. I think that you guys are going to enjoy it. Uh, I think you guys are going to enjoy it and stuff, but you'll see that, you know, my past doesn't define who I am. Like it doesn't. That my past is the past, right? Uh, the question that I asked that nobody's asked me tonight is, would I do everything all over again? Like, would I change that? And honestly, I think that everything was laid out the way that it was supposed to have been laid out for me in my life. Because I feel like I wouldn't be the person that I am today because I've learned, right? Uh, I've learned from those mistakes. I've, what I have ammunition now is in knowledge, right? That's my knowledge. That is my ammunition to date. So for some, yeah, people are going to say, man, that sucks that you had to endure trauma and abuse the way you did. And, all this happened. I know, but there's it's just laid out the way that it should have been laid out, and I'm so much better. I'm a better person today. My heart is better. Uh, I could honestly sit here and be like, I'm okay with my life today. I really am. So, uh, it was the way it should have been, for sure, because I'm able to, be able to hopefully inspire other people to change their life around, to not be stuck in depression, to not be, living with a needle in your arm. You know what I'm saying? Um, to have the courage to walk out in an abusive relationship, to have the courage to be something greater. You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah, I wouldn't do it over again. It's my cards were laid out. They were the way that they were meant to be laid out for me, you know? Uh, and I am good today. My mental status is great today. Uh, my heart is good today. I can love today. You know what I'm saying? So I hope to inspire people to come out and share their story. Uh, and I was having a little issue with that because I felt like, how can I ask somebody to come and share their story on my podcast if I can't share my story with you guys, right? So it's practice what you preach, right? Walk the talk the talk. So that is why today I decided to come out and share a little bit of my, uh, my father and the depression and, everything that I've, the parts that I went through when it came to my father and being honest that, yeah, I wanted to fucking die. Yes, I wanted to kill myself every day. Yeah, I was chicken to actually pull the trigger. And yes, I wish that somebody would have taken me out. But I am so glad today that I am not that. My past does not define who I am today. It has made me such a better person, a more improved version of myself. And I hope to inspire everybody else to come out and do the same. Whether you do it on my show or you do it privately at home, that's up to you. I just want everybody to be happy to live to the fullest potential that you can possibly do. Go create, go inspire. Don't just sit around at home and, be haters and dwell on the past and, self-loathe. Like, don't, you're so much better than that. Each and every one of you are. So I can't wait to share more experiences with you guys. I hope that you follow me on here, or you follow me on the X, or you follow me on YouTube, on iHeartRadio, on Spotify. Uh, I will be sharing my whole life story on the podcast in a couple of weeks. If you guys don't have any more questions for me, I know it's late. We ran over an hour, but I appreciate every one of you. I know that this episode of my show, The Unhinged, got a little emotional. Um, but I miss my dad. My dad was a really great guy. And, like I said, he would give the shirt off his back to anyone. If it was raining and he had an umbrella and you were walking down the street, he's gonna give you the umbrella. That's just how he was. And he'll walk in the rain. But I appreciate everybody that was on here. There's some people who joined, like Olivia's mom and all that. So if y'all have any questions about what I talked to in regards to my dad, just let me know and I'll be glad to re-answer them again for you guys. But I did share the story of my dad. Um, you know, July 4th, 2012, he was ran over and he was in a coma from that moment for until July 29th when he passed away from those injuries. Yes, the investigation is still open. Yeah, the investigation is still open. The charges are manslaughter. Um, I went off on Crime Stoppers because I could never get a flyer from Crime Stoppers. Like, what's up with my with my thing? Gold Honda Accord, southwest side of Houston to Anderson Road and Beltway. Uh, family, maybe it was a family. But the girl driving the car, her uncle lived in the same area as my father. He owned a car shop, a body shop, a body shop. So investigators could pick up, but the investigators couldn't pick up the vehicle when they went days later to go. This is what I think happened. I think when Telemundo or no, well, Channel 2, because the Channel 2 News broke it first. I think when Channel 2 News broke it first, it messed up the investigation because nobody had mentioned anything about a gold Honda Accord at the time, right? Until Channel 2 broke that news on the weekend and said they were looking for a gold Honda Accord. And I think when that happened, I think that's really what screwed up the whole investigation is what I think because then maybe these people put the two and two together and were like, damn, what if that was us, and we have a gold Honda Accord. So, okay, July 4th, whatever day that was a weekday. That was a weekday, all right, in 2020. So it was Wednesday when we were popping fireworks on the lake. All right. So then the news broke out, I believe, on Saturday. I think Channel 2, there's archives for Channel 2, so it's actually there in Channel 2. I just have to remember the title of it, and it's an old email. I would have to go back. I do have the same email that I had back then, so I can actually pull it and find out. I know Telemundo has it archived in their archives as well, so we can pull that too. That's all public information that you can go to the websites and pull the links. I think for Telemundo it's called something about atrapiado, nombre atrapiado, and then it goes from there. But so I think the Channel 2 broke that news on Saturday. When the investigator and I went on Monday afternoon, the car was already fixed. So they've had from July 5th, which would have been that Thursday, through whatever that Monday was, July 9th, maybe. So they had those 4 days, and really all they needed to fix was the light. I mean, the mirror was the mirror, because the mirror was the only thing missing, and some body damage, but not extensive. So I don't know. I'm not a body mechanic person, but anybody out there who does body work and bumper, it was on the side. Yeah. Tell me, how hard is it to fix that if you have a shop and you need to get that? Like, I don't know how long it would take, but yeah, the news broke out on Saturday, I believe, and then it could possibly have got popped out and then easily just put the mirror back on there, because the whole thing just came off. The mirror did, and that's what the investigators found out at the scene, was the mirror to the car. So she had it with her the day that we went to the apartments to go look at the car, but because the car was fixed, the mirror was fixed, everything was fixed, it was, like I said, she couldn't get anybody to come get it because it no longer matched the description of the vehicle that she was looking for. And the vehicle, the description would have been the missing mirror and the the bumper or the dents or whatever. So no, they were not gonna. So the question is, could they not get prints off of that? No, because she couldn't touch that vehicle anymore, because from the time that happened to the time that she physically saw the vehicle no longer matched the description. So that is the reason why they could not touch that car. And the DA didn't want to approve for a warrant for the car to search the car because it no longer matched the description, and everything else was circumstantial evidence. Even though the little girl said it was an O or a Q in the license plate, and the actual license plate did have the opposite. So O or a Q, I couldn't remember, but yeah, they couldn't do that. They couldn't pick it up anymore or do anything with it. They didn't want to do. They didn't want to get a warrant for it. Um, I will say this: the little girl, going back to Tiambi, I'm so glad that she's a nurse and she's doing so good. This thing that her daughter, her 7-year-old daughter, saw really traumatized the little girl. The little girl wouldn't sleep in her room. She would cry at night. She would be scared because she actually saw it happen. Uh, when the funeral came, the Tiami showed up. She was there and she took her daughter. And she said that she took her daughter because she wanted her daughter. Her daughter wanted to go, first of all. She wanted to see him. And she was happy that she saw my dad lying in the casket, looking normal. Like, not what she saw, like with blood and all that horrible thing. She wanted to have a clean image of him, and she was able to get that clean image. So I did talk to Tiami a while after. Her mom ended up in the hospital being really sick. You know, we did talk, we did laugh, we did cry. But yeah, it's something that I'll always hold special with me privately. At this point, I think somebody someday is gonna knock on the door one day, and I'm gonna be like, I'm good. Like I said previously, I just hope that the people who did this, that they are actually really doing, that they're good citizens and they are doing something productive with their lives for sure. I may have missed it, but do they have? So the question is, I may have missed it, but do they have leads? Okay, so they did have leads, yes, and you did miss it. So I'll go back. That's okay. They have. There was 3 people, and the car was at the hospital, and that's. I don't want to elaborate any more on that. Okay, but the car was at the hospital. The car was wrecked. We didn't know at the time that the car was at the hospital that they were looking for a gold Honda Accord. Okay. It wasn't until after the witness and the daughter started saying this stuff. Okay. So now when that happened during like the weekday, and then when the weekend happened, the news broke, and then all hell broke loose because the gold Honda Accord is now being looked for. Okay. So now come Monday, when I did find the location of the person, the address of the car no longer matched the description. So the investigators couldn't get the car. And what the investigator did was go back. Thank you for that question, Pink Zebra by Tia. But the investigators did go and talk to them, and she couldn't make them come in because we couldn't get a warrant, right? Because the car no longer matched that description. So she talked to them, and they went ahead and agreed to come down to the station and give their statement, but they went 2 weeks later after everything happened. When they went to give their side of the story, their statement, uh, the investigator called me and said, I've been doing this over 20 years. I'll never forget the words she said. I've been doing this over 20 years. My gut tells me they did it. Their stories were rehearsed verbatim, word for word. But they can't do anything about this because everything was all circumstantial evidence by this point, because that car got fixed before he got picked up, before a warrant was even approved for it. She said there's nothing we can do at this point but wait until they have a conscience and confess. So, you know, there probably could have been they were young. I mean, if I'm thinking, if everything is matching up in my head, like they literally could be my kids, the age of my children, in their 30s. So this is why I say, I do forgive, and I hope that they are living productive lives and they are making a difference in the community, and they're not just pissing their life away because they took my father and now they're out here living life, enjoying freedom. So I really hope that they're doing something positive in the community. You know, modeled role citizens, really. But yeah, that, I mean, what can we do, right? But I hope that answers your question, Tia. Yeah, but yeah, they got the names, but they all had stories. They all had 2 weeks to rehearse the stories. They had 2 weeks to have others lie for them, But at this point, I'm just kind of I'm not willing to go down that rabbit hole again and try to force anybody to come forward or do anything like that. I've made my peace with everything. I forgive. My dad wouldn't want me to harbor all this, in my heart, in my soul. And so that's just how it is. So thank y'all so much for all the questions. I appreciate y'all. I do have iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, the X, Rumble. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Unhinged, a Mary Bly show. Until the next conversation. Thank y'all.
The unhinged where nothing is hidden. We talking so get in.
Listen.
The unhinged where nothing is hidden. We talking so get in.
Listen.
Mary Bly.
Show.
Mary Bly.
Show.
The unhinged where nothing is hidden. We talking so get in.
Listen.
The unhinged where nothing is hidden. We talking so get in.
Listen.
Mary Bly.
Show.
Mary Bly.
Show.
Welcome